Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with mountain troops advance in Italy, talking about the advance in Italy and how the mountain troops are getting through such a mountainous place. And how they're hiding behind a destroyer there. And that is the end of that little section. And we're now on victory in Europe. And as I do with this constantly, I will paraphrase a lot of this stuff because, well, this will take a whole video if I have to read all of this. And kind of defeats the purpose of the whole pictorial part of the history. But early in March, the Allies began their climactic march to victory in Europe by breaching the Rhine River defenses at Remagen. And so obviously this is just talking about, obviously this whole section really is talking about how the Allies are winning in Europe. And down here they even say, the final crack-up started May 4th, which is very true. The Russian contribution, and it's just a small section here, but let's be honest, the Soviets crashing down from the east definitely has a big part to play in this. And you can see, obviously, Marshal Zhukov. Zhukov, obviously, is very much a hero after the war for the Russians. And most people don't remember Konev as much nowadays, but Zhukov, they remember Zhukov quite a bit. A funny little story about Zhukov, actually. After World War II, and then during the Cold War, during World War II, Zhukov had gotten hooked on Coca-Cola. He really liked it. Well, obviously, with the Cold War starting and things like that, it couldn't be seen as a prominent military general drinking a Western drink. So he sends Eisenhower a little message, basically, saying, hey, you know, could you get me some Coca-Cola? I can't make it seem like we're not breaking any things. And Eisenhower does. So what he does is he has the Coca-Cola company make special Coke for Zhukov. And this Coke is clear, and so it's in this clear bottle, and it's got a red star with a blue background lid. And that's what he's drinking. And so a lot of people, it's like, oh, you know, it's better that he's just a drunk rather than a drinking, you know, pesky Westerner drinks. It's just a funny little aside, you know. And obviously here we're also talking about the Nazi collapse in Italy. Really, Italy is out of this war for a long while at this point, and it's just Germans holding parts of Italy that are defending it, and it's just kind of interesting. And then it talks about the political front. Yep, President, and this is actually a big part too here. FDR, he dies in April 12th, and we really haven't gotten to that point yet. We're still in March. And so he had been taking a part on a lot of this. Adolf Hitler, April 1st. Benito Mussolini met in ignominious death. Yeah, they hung him upside down, and they killed him. Winston Churchill, no longer prime minister by the end of the war. That's another interesting thing that a lot of people always forget. And when you really think about it, the leaders of the war on the Allied side really change by the end of the war. We have FDR is no longer president. We got Truman. Winston Churchill is no longer prime minister. It is who they just said here, Clement Attlee. The only one that stayed the same, obviously, is Joseph Stalin, but that's really it. Then also they talk about the United Nations Conference. It has, obviously, the Americans, British, French, and Soviets, I think, are on the main. They all have, like, the veto power and the main council. There was another one, I think it was China, because obviously they're part to play, but nowadays. And yeah, this is also where they talk about how the Soviets will get involved in Japan, and we know that later. And now we're also talking about the victory of over the Japanese. We're getting close to the end of the Japanese reign, really. They're losing their empire rapidly on all fronts. China, they're still having some successes, but it doesn't really matter at this point. The Americans are destroying the Pacific Empire, and soon Japan will have 2 nuclear bombs dropped on them, and they will surrender pretty quickly afterwards. Now, you could debate if that's because of the Soviets or them, but I think it's a mix of the two things. Having 2 suns dropped on you has a big effect. And also having the Soviets, who they were also kind of scared of. And also, just a little thing, the subjugation of Japan was complete on the last day of the 6th year of World War II, when the Instruments of Surrender was signed September 2nd aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. And now, obviously, we'll get into all that. This is just a little preface of what we're going to get into. But it's nice to talk about certain things during that and get over that. So now we'll get into the actual pictures. The Allies drive to the Rhine. March 1945. Clear Germans from the West Bank. Early in March, a great Allied offensive was relentlessly pushing the Nazis back to their last natural barrier, the Rhine River. The American 9th and Canadian 1st Armies linked up in the north. Patton's 3rd Army struck from the Moselle in the south, and the 1st Army in the center staged the most spectacular success by crossing the Rhine at Remagen on March 7th. So here we just see the legend here, start of the offensive, battle lines, just to get to the basic ideas. So we can see right here, the American 9th and Canadian armies join here. Or 9th, yeah, you know what I mean. On March 3rd, they join right here, near the Rhine. Wessel's right over there. We have the American 9th reaches the Rhine on the 2nd. So you can see the Rhine here. So it is a defensible position, but it's not going to really do much. 1st and 9th Armies attack at the Ruhr on February 23rd. This is a little bit further back in time. And then you can see the big push here, which is the American 1st, which just crosses the Rhine at Remagen, right here. So the Americans are over. This is a big battle line. The Germans are not going to be able to hold much longer. It's getting over for them. The American 3rd drives for Koblenz on March 3rd. The American 3rd attacks from the Moselle line. You can see them splitting and attacking on both sides here, going to Menheim. And then the American 7th attacks on a wide front, just giving that little bit of extra. Oop, gotta hide that. Yeah, and you can see the big battle lines. Getting over the Rhine is very important, and as fast as they do, will be a big crush to the Germans. You know, they can't hold this, and they know it. They're just trying to do whatever they can, but it's not going to matter. The 9th rumbles into Munich Gladbach. March 1st, 1945. Town is crushed. Although the 29th Division of the American 9th Army took Munich and Gladbach with a loss of only 5 men, the town itself took a battering from Allied bombs and shells, as these pictures testify. To the north, the Canadian 1st Army was crunching ahead through fierce resistance to link up with the 9th Army. Yeah, you can see the town absolutely obliterated. They're trying to crush out the Germans, and they're doing it. I think it's awful how much these cities get destroyed, but as we know, both sides did it, but just because both sides did it doesn't mean it's right. But it is effective at getting rid of the Germans and their last bits of defense. The 5th fights on for Boulogne. March 3rd, 1945. Brazilian nurses attend wounded. Infantrymen of the 10th Mountain Division pass a sleeping German as they dash over the crest of the hill in the Apennines below Boulogne. The Nazi was knocked out by artillery fire. Members of the Nurse Corps of the Brazilian Expeditionary Force below helped to attend to the sick and wounded at the 16th Evacuation Hospital, Pistoia area, Italy. Yeah, Brazil, a country we don't really talk about when we talk about World War II. They kind of show up at the last minute. It's cool that they had some contributions. Latin America really doesn't get really talked about a ton during this war. There's small bits that we talk about, but it is interesting to think that Brazilians sent at least something. And we can see their nurses here. I'm sure they did great work, and the men were glad to have them. That's for sure. Always nice to have more nurses. That's for sure. And with that, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I could improve on. I just appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.